All right. Welcome to the final mock draft before the actual draft, which is this Thursday. Um, so we're going to be doing our final mock draft, and how we're going to do it is we're going to go back and forth. Where Garrick's going to have the odd number picks, I'm going to have the even number picks, and in this mock draft we're going to have no trades just because it's just the two of us going back and forth. But yeah, we're just going to go as if I feel like this type of mock draft is more realistic because it gives you the possibility of like picks being stolen, I guess. Like someone didn't, the guy you were thinking about taking at a certain spot not being there. That makes sense. So without further ado, first on the clock, the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, this is. I feel like everyone believes in the same kind of guy is going to go here. Joe Burrow, obviously at LSU, the Heisman winner. Um, no surprise here. Andy Dalton is pretty much figured out that he's on the way out. Burrow's on the way in. So yeah, with the first pick here, the Bengals select Joe Burrow.
Yeah, I don't think we don't really need to even go into detail on that one. I think there's no surprise there, right? Everyone
Yeah.
saw that coming. I don't think there shouldn't be any surprise with the second pick. Washington Redskins are going Chase Young. I think it's pretty explanatory. He's the at the very least the best non-quarterback, and therefore you take him if you're Washington. And even though I still feel there's a possibility they might just trade down. But again, no trade, so I would go Chase Young.
Okay, then third, the Detroit Lions. I have them picking Jeff Okudah, the cornerback out of Ohio State. Um, they definitely need a true number one corner to kind of lock down their defense and actually have a leader in the secondary for Detroit. So I don't really see them trading down here. They just need Okuda so bad that it doesn't really make sense to drop.
Well, number 4 is the New York Giants, and this is where I think things get interesting. Because I feel like this is the first non-assumed pick. And I'm going to go number 4. I'm going to go Isaiah Simmons, outside linebacker at Clemson. Obviously, I feel like they want O-line here, but I feel like Simmons is so dynamic, and I don't think besides him at outside linebacker, there's no one besides pure pass rushers, like for a while. And I think he adds so much versatility on the defense, and God knows the Giants need a linebacker. So I'm going to go with Isaiah Simmons, and here's where things start really getting interesting.
Yeah, I think you said it a little too early because I think pick 5 is another one that everyone's kind of already assumed who's going here. So Miami Dolphins obviously selecting their first of 3 first round picks. I have them taking Tua Tagovailoa, out of Alabama. Even with his hurt hip, and the rumors that came out of how the performances went in the or not the performances, but the physicals went through the NFL Combine. I still think they're pretty set on Tua as their new guy in the backfield, and I don't think they're going to need to trade up or trade down here. I think they're going to be good.
So here's the interesting thing, at least what we've been hearing. Rumors, and we don't know if this is the Dolphins doing it out on purpose as they are trying to get to without trading up, but the rumor is that the Dolphins are higher on Herbert than Tua. That's the rumor going around, so we'll have to see that 5 picks. It'll be interesting. And well, number 6 I think is the most interesting pick in the entire draft, honestly, because the Chargers I feel like can go in so many ways, especially if depending on who's taken by the Dolphins, Herbert or Tua. They have a lot of options, and this might be controversial, but with number 6, I'm gonna have the Los Angeles Chargers going with Tristan Wirfs, offensive tackle, Iowa.
Wow.
I feel like people are expecting a quarterback here, and I don't know if that's actually going to happen. I feel like the Chargers are more content on Tyrod Taylor than people think, and I think they might just go O-line straight up.
I think that makes sense. That's kind of similar to what I have for the next pick for the Carolina Panthers. I have them taking an offensive tackle similarly to Wirfs and Jedrick Wills Jr. from Alabama. I feel like they would probably maybe consider a Derek Brown or a Kinlaw, but they would have to probably trade down if they're going to settle for a defensive tackle. I really don't see Carolina really having a lot of leeway with this. I feel like O-line would be a good way to go to protecting McCaffrey and finally getting some protection for whatever quarterback they decide to go with now.
The interesting thing about that is I feel like if Isaiah Simmons is here, he goes to Carolina, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many holes on that damn team. It's interesting because they did trade for Russell Okung, so at least they still have they still need another tackle, truly. But it's just interesting to think. I feel like Carolina can go anywhere really they want to because they got so many holes. But yeah, and then number 8, Arizona Cardinals. This one, I feel like this one's now. I feel like this one's automatically going to be assumed to be O-line, right? Because they did trade for DeAndre Hopkins and they got that steal, and maybe they would have gone wide receiver beforehand. But I'm gonna go with Andrew Thomas, tackle Georgia, and the reason I was thinking about Becton here, right? But the thing came out, Becton didn't pass the drug test. I mean, I don't know. That's the thing is, I just don't know how much that's going to affect him, right?
Mm-hmm.
That failed drug test. So that's why I might just go Thomas here, just because if you have so many tackles rated similarly, like in a similar respect, you might as well go for the one that didn't fail the drug test, right? So Andrew Thomas at number 8.
That's fair. And then at number 9, I have Jacksonville then taking Derek Brown, the defensive lineman out of Auburn. I just feel like Brown's actually could be selected higher. It's just that the teams ahead of Jacksonville are just so stuck to certain positions that they need to approach. Obviously, you can't pass up a Chase Young or a Joe Burrow in the Bengals or Redskins position, but I feel like the Jaguars really need to rebuild the front end of their defense, and I think Derek Brown does a good job of doing that and filling that gap for them.
Yeah, I think Jacksonville could. Derek Brown makes sense. They could go in a number of ways, but I think Derek Brown would be a good fit for them. But number 10, the Cleveland Browns. Ugh. This feels like. So number 10, I'm gonna go with Mekhi Becton here. Even though I passed it on at 8 with the Cardinals, I feel like now you take him because Wills, Wirfs, and Thomas are gone. He's like the last of that group of 4. And I feel like the Browns need tackle, and the only way they don't go tackle really at this 10 spot is if Isaiah Simmons somehow falls to 10, right? And I don't see that happening. So I feel like that's where they're going to go. They'll go Becton because he's the main tackle here.
I have next the New York Jets. I actually have them taking CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver out of Oklahoma here. I feel like they just need to get a weapon beyond Le'Veon Bell with how poor Le'Veon actually produced last season. And hopefully that'll make their offense more of a machine than it was last season. It just kind of stalled out. So I feel like CeeDee Lamb would be a good pick here. I think he's better between him and Judy. So I think Lamb is here at 11.
Yeah, I think Lamb makes sense too. With all in this part of this mock draft, we have all the tackles, those big 4 gone. And if that happens, yeah, they go wide receiver, and then it's up to between Lamb and Judy. And you said Lamb's better, so you go Lamb, which makes me got number 12 with the Raiders though. Jerry Judy, wide receiver, Alabama. I feel like the Raiders, if this situation turns out where there's like this O-line run, they're in prime position for the 1 or 2 of those wide receivers, Judy or Lamb, even though some people also have Ruggs going there too. So it's going to be interesting. But I would go with Jerry Judy in this situation at 12 for the Raiders.
Yeah, and I kind of see somewhere in that 10 to like 13 range, they're going to probably go back-to-back off the board, I think, or pretty darn close to it. unless there's some big trade up or something big happens otherwise. But I think it's going to they're probably going to go in the 10 to 13 range. But next up, we have the San Francisco 49ers, and then I have them selecting C.J. Henderson, the cornerback out of Florida. I think that the reason they really lost the Super Bowl was how slow Richard Sherman was. Pretty much the Chiefs just bullying Sherman as much as they could, and San Francisco really retained almost all their talent. I really don't see them as having a big need really anywhere too much. Like, they're still pretty solid. Offense, of course, was the main.
Just corner. Corners are only real need. I would like big one.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I have him taking Henderson here. If he's still on the board, of course. But I think he would really fill in their defense to where the only weakness that was really exploited at the end of the season there.
Well, yeah, and the big thing here too. Well, this spot, apparently 49ers, both first-round picks. They're trying to move down and get more picks. So this could be, they could trade out this pick. But I like Henderson here. I also could see Kinlaw replacing Buckner, or even Ruggs if they wanted to get super fancy on that wide receiving core. But because you didn't take Ruggs at 13, with number 14, I'm having the Tampa Bay Buccaneers take Henry Ruggs III, wide receiver, Alabama. I think they're pushing all the chips to the center right here, and they're going all in. They said, we signed Tom Brady. We're bringing Gronkowski back in. We already got Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Let's just get Henry Ruggs, and let's just create the best offense in the NFL. So I have them on Ruggs right there at 14.
And then you had that at 14. So then 15 is the Broncos, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Correct.
And then I would actually have the Broncos take Javon Kinlaw, the defensive tackle out of South Carolina. I feel like he's probably going to go in this range anyways. The Falcons will probably want to grab him if the Bucks or the Broncos don't. But I feel like since the offensive tackles have kind of flown off the board, the Broncos are kind of limited here. I honestly, if that truly happened, I feel like Denver would try to trade down. But other than that, I would go with Kinlaw. Still feel like he's a good prospect, even though it's kind of an interesting fit here with Denver having most of what I had as their picks being already taken off the board.
Yeah, and I like D tackle for Denver here, even though I feel like if there was the right O-lineman in the situation, I would go for him, but I don't think there is. So and if there's the right wide receiver, I would go for him, and I don't think there is. So Kinlaw makes sense. But this 16th pick, the Falcons, is interesting because there's been rumors that they want to trade up for C.J. Henderson. C.J. Henderson in this is off the board. I would really like to get a corner, but I don't necessarily like a corner at this spot. So I'm going to go with Clavon Chason, outside linebacker from LSU here at 16, just because they brought in Dante Fowler Jr., but they still need another pass rusher because they lost two, and pass rush wasn't good to begin with. So yeah, I feel like you go get Chason right here. I think he's the best pass rusher at this spot.
All right, then with the 17th pick, I have the Dallas Cowboys taking a corner from Clemson, A.J. Terrell. Definitely they need help in the secondary, whether that be a safety or corner. I feel like a corner would probably be more helpful here for Dallas at the moment. But since he's still on the board, I think he's a pretty solid. I mean, he's more of a late first round pick in A.J. Terrell, but I feel like he fits the need so well in Dallas that they would take him off the board.
So I think it's interesting about Terrell just because I think like you said, I feel like I think there's a good chance A.J. Terrell goes in the 20s in the first round Thursday. But the interesting thing is I just got this gut feeling that the Raiders at 19 are going to take Terrell, so they have the two former starting Clemson cornerbacks as their two starting cornerbacks, just because that's Mike Mayock's thing. But it would be interesting. I think there is a legitimate possibility that Terrell is the third corner off the board. So I do like the pick because Dallas needs secondary help, whether that's safety or corner. They need something. Which leads me to pick number 18, the Dolphins up again. We got the quarterback now, so now we're gonna go get the O-line to help. So I'm gonna go get Josh Jones, tackle, Houston. There's a lot of people that aren't as high as on Josh Jones, but I just feel like this makes sense. I feel like you got that O-line was the worst in football. I feel like you're gonna have to go get O-line at some point. Maybe you can wait till that 20th round, that in the 20s pick. But honestly, if they do end up needing to trade up to get their quarterback, I feel like that is going to be a pick used in the trade up. So we'll have to see about that. But yeah, I'm going to go Josh Jones at 18.
Okay, then at 19, I have the Las Vegas Raiders taking Trayvon Diggs, the corner out of Alabama. Since you had them selecting, or I can't remember if you had them or I had them
Judy.
selected. Yeah,
Yeah, I had him.
Judy taking the wide receiver with their 12th overall pick. It just makes sense to address the secondary then. If they didn't get it earlier, they'd get it now. And I feel like Diggs is a pretty solid around corner who can make a pretty sudden impact. I mean, he won't be your immediate best defensive corner, but with a team like the Raiders who need the help so bad on the and defensive backs, he might be. So this is a good pick here.
Yeah, I feel like the D-backs are going off the board sooner than they might actually in the draft, but it's interesting because there's like a lot of like jumbling up there after after Henderson. I think Henderson's kind of become the second cornerback, but everyone else is kind of like, who's it going to be? But it's interesting because I don't even know right now who Oakland's second cornerback would technically be. Like, they got Mullen, but who besides that? I honestly don't know. But so here, number 20, Jacksonville. This one's interesting. We had him taking D tackle. Ooh, this would be a spot where I would want a corner, but I don't know. We just had a couple corners go off the board, and I'm not really comfortable. So I'm going to go and I'm going to take T. Higgins, wide receiver, Clemson here. I don't know. I feel like I'm just going for wide. I feel like they could use a wide receiver, so I'm going to go for who I think's the best still available because we got Ruggs, Judy, and Lamb gone. So that's who I'm going to go with there at number 20.
Okay, then 21, I have the Eagles. I have them probably taking here. I think they actually go O-line and get Cesar Ruiz out of Michigan. With a lot of the wide receivers go off pretty quick. I feel like as Ruiz has kind of dropped a little bit, maybe try to, even though he's projected late first round again, I feel like it couldn't go wrong with a good prospect here that they can eventually develop to probably one of the stronger defensive lines in their division, hopefully. So I feel like Ruiz wouldn't be a bad pick here for Philadelphia.
I don't know. I feel like that's too high for Ruiz just because I don't think a center for. I know Kelsey's older, and you could play Ruiz at guard, but they still got good guards. I feel like they're going wide receiver here, unless a cornerback that they really likes out there.
But haven't we've picked Ruggs, Lamb, Judy,
yeah, I
and
feel
then you
like
just
Justin
picked
Jefferson's the guy that they're thinking about here. I don't know. I don't see Ruiz to the Eagles. But and then number 22 is another pick where it's like I was thinking like Terrell at this spot because the Vikings need corners. Oh man. Well, number 22, Vikings. I'm having to go Justin Jefferson, wide receiver, LSU. They do need another wide receiver now that they traded Stephon Diggs. I'm just going with top available, I think. Maybe. I don't know. I've said I'm not as high as on Jefferson as everybody else, but I'm going to go with them here. Vikings, again, a team I think they could go corner, but I don't necessarily like a corner right here.
And then at 23, New England, I have I actually think they take Jordan Love here, QB out of Utah State. They don't really have. Obviously, they gave away Brady this offseason, but I feel like with the fall after the Bengals and the Dolphins pick in the top five, there's not really, depending on how the Chargers decide to go, if they take Herbert or not. I feel like then the Patriots will probably have their pick between the two this late in the first round, and then be able to develop the heir to the throne there and just kind of get a good prospect that they feel like they can eventually make into a bona fide starter. And I think they go with Love because I personally like how he has the athleticism, he has the size. I know that's not really shown to be true in the past couple of drafts with the Kyler Murrays and Baker Mayfield's kind of proven that size can still get you drafted higher, but I still think Love will get taken over Herbert here.
That's interesting. So even if Herbert's still available at 23, you think Patriots would rather go Love than Herbert?
Yes.
Huh. All right. Well, here we're gonna. I'm gonna go a bit bold here. Pick 24. New Orleans Saints. I'm gonna go Justin Herbert, quarterback, Oregon. I really don't see this happening in the draft. Love and Herbert going back to back in the 20s necessarily, but Drew Brees has already got his jig set up for when he retires. I mean, come on now, it's happening sooner or later. I understand that they might try to go push all the chips to the table and go all in on him right now while they got him, but I would line up. I think if Herbert's still here, you go and get him and line up the quarterback. And anyone that's gonna go there and talk about, oh, Taysom Hill, they want Taysom Hill to be the starter. Taysom Hill's already over 30 years old. That's not gonna work. At least I don't think so. So that's why I'm going with Herbert, 24.
Okay. And then 25, I have the Vikings here taking Xavier McKinney, the safety out of Alabama. As you mentioned earlier, Vikings are desperate for corners and safeties. I know that probably corners a little bit more so, but I feel like McKinney's just a good fit here in their scheme, especially with Zimmerman's defensive setup. And I think this is a good pick here because they do truly need as many defensive backs that they can get after they pretty much lost everybody to being up against the cap in the free agency.
Yeah, it's interesting because at least they still got their two starting safeties. So it's almost like I feel like they're going to have to leave this first round with a cornerback, and we don't have them leaving with the cornerback, which is interesting. I guess that means they're going to rely on McKinney to go in and play the slot as a almost slot corner. And I don't know if that's... I do think McKinney has versatility and could attempt to do so, but we'll have to see how that goes. Now, at number 26, got the Dolphins again. So we got the tackle. We got the quarterback. Now, I'm going to go a bit out here. And this might not... I'm going to go Denzel Mims, wide receiver, Baylor. I feel like you got one good wide receiver, make it two. You spend all your resources in free agency on the defense, so let's go. I feel like they basically set it up that they're going pure offense, at least in the first round. So go get Denzel Mims. I think he's the best wide receiver available, so that's why I'm taking him here at 26.
Okay, I think that's a little. It's a fair stretch, but I think, in my opinion, the Dolphins will probably still go tackle here because I feel like they won't be able to, and as you've seen so far from free agency, they're just going to have to be able to build their offensive line through the draft. But considering how many tackles have already gone off the board, and they already got one earlier, so the wide receiver makes sense. And then for 27, I have the Seahawks taking Gross Matos to the defensive end out of Penn State.
Yeah.
Wait, have you taken Murray yet? I don't think we have either, though.
Kenneth Murray, no.
Okay, actually, I'll take Kenneth Murray, the linebacker out of Oklahoma. Sorry about that.
Oh, well, that's all right, because you go ahead.
He's really versatile and being able to defend the run and the pass. I think he's would definitely help Seattle, even though you can't really Bobby Wagner still. Bobby Wagner, but of course Kenneth Murray has shown at Oklahoma that turned them around in having a more versatile linebacker and also can kind of do a little bit of be a five-tool player for them, pass, defend the rush, and kind of be a field general at some times. So I think his flashes of potential here show that this is a safe late first-round pick and something that can develop into what looks more favorable years down the road.
Yeah, I like Kenneth Murray. I just don't know. I don't think Seattle goes linebacker. Not inside linebacker, if anything. I think they might. I think they're going pass rush or corner, like a slot corner. But it's interesting because you were about to take Yetur Gross-Matos, and at number 28, Baltimore Ravens, I'm gonna go Yetur Gross-Matos, defensive end, Penn State. It makes sense. This feels like a Baltimore pick. I feel like they don't really have a lot of needs, but this is one where they could use a guy. So I'm going with Gross-Matos at 28.
Okay, then at 29, I have the Tennessee Titans. I have them taking. You took Josh Jones already, right?
Correct.
Wow, so that really dropped the quality of offensive lineman on the board. I'll take Austin Jackson, the offensive lineman at University of Southern California. This is definitely a stretch in a pick, but the Titans could definitely reinforce their offensive line with another lineman pick here in the first round. So even though I feel like it's going to start kind of be like panic buying, if that makes any sense, that with my pick earlier in Cesar Ruiz, kind of even though that was a stretch to the Eagles, the picks will seem more thin, and then teams will start trying to make more of aggressive moves to get offensive linemen here.
The interesting thing is they're gonna have to make Austin Jackson a right tackle because they got Taylor Lewan, but they did lose Jack Conklin. So I do see them possibly going on the line, but it's got to be a guy they're confident will move to right tackle. And Austin Jackson is the last tackle that I think would get into the first round. I think AJ Epinesa here at 29. There's a good potential for that. I think he fits their scheme well. But at number 30, the Green Bay Packers. And man, I've taken a lot of wide receivers. I don't think there's going to be this many going in the first round, but we're going to have another one. Brandon Ayuk, wide receiver, Arizona State. I feel like if Denzel Mims or T. Higgins is still here, this is the spot where they go, but neither is. So you help Aaron Rodgers out, and you get Ayuk. Maybe if Herbert or Love was here, I might go quarterback and cause some real drama, but neither is. So we're going with Brandon Ayuk, wide receiver, Arizona State.
All right, then I have AJ Epinesa. I think I'm saying that right. Yeah, out of Iowa going here. I think they're just going to get a replacement for Buckner. So I think that's pretty much what the 49ers can do if they can't drop down from this pick. Just kind of replace who they've already lost to free agency.
Yeah, I think this makes sense, permitted that they went C.J. Henderson 13. Yeah, I feel like they might go. Well, like I said, maybe if I hadn't taken so many damn wide receivers, they might go wide receiver. But so many have been off the board. Final pick 32, Kansas City Chiefs. I'm gonna have them go Jalen Johnson, cornerback, Utah. I feel like he's right in there with Terrell and Diggs, who went in the teens. And then we just kind of didn't go cornerback for a bit. I feel like Chiefs are going to go cornerback because there's still so much up in the air because they lost Fuller and Breeland's still a free agent. So technically they could maybe they'll reassign Breeland, but they still need a second cornerback. I feel like even with if they reacquired Breeland. So I feel like defense. I feel like is definitely where the Chiefs have to go. right? It's gonna be insane if they don't go defense. Like, let's just blow everybody out and never even try to play defense. That's
Yeah.
But I feel like Johnson makes sense. I think he is a good value here. Honestly, at 32, I could see him going higher.
Yeah, I can see him getting picked earlier and getting off the board, but I think with how many corners have kind of snuck into the first round here, and with how violent the picking of the wide receivers was earlier as well, that there'll probably be some leeway here in the numbers that I feel like a corner will probably still be able to drop to the Chiefs, so I think it's not a bad pick.
Yeah, and with that wraps up our first round mock draft, our final one before the actual draft. I feel like after the actual draft, we're gonna come back and we're gonna have like an overview of how the teams did and what we liked, what we didn't like. And I don't know, just based off of how this offseason went so far, I'm gonna guess I'm not gonna like how the Texans drafted. Maybe maybe it's an extrapolation a bit, but I'm immediately already saying I'm probably not gonna like how the Texans drafted. So I guess for Graham Solomos and Jared Narowski, this has been the Missing the Mark podcast. Hopefully you enjoyed our first round mock draft here, and we'll see you next time.